A man stood in the doorway, hesitating. The room was small, modest, perfect for someone who just needed a place to stay while getting their life together. He glanced down at the application form, then up again at the young woman who stood before him, her eyes sparkling but somehow distant. "You sure you're okay with this?" he asked. She gave him a quick, assured nod. "Yeah, I need to be out of my family's way for a while. It's a fresh start for me." "All right then," he said, signing the lease, feeling a flicker of something. Maybe hope. Maybe uncertainty. He couldn't tell yet. She wasn't just any college girl, and he wasn't just any single father struggling to keep his life together. Both were carrying their own silent burdens, one of sacrifice, the other of a complicated legacy. Neither knew yet that their lives would change forever over the course of a year. The first few weeks went by quietly. Emma, the college girl, settled into her room, keeping mostly to herself. She was respectful, quiet, and worked late at night. Alex, her landlord, had a daughter of his own, Sophia, who was a bit older than Emma and came by a few times a week. Sophia's visits usually involved light-hearted teasing and a few hours of catching up over takeout. Alex didn't think much of it. He had enough on his plate, a full-time job, a broken marriage to navigate, and a home that constantly felt like it was on the edge of chaos. Then, one evening, as Alex was fixing dinner, Emma came into the kitchen, her arms full of books. She set them down on the table, looking up at him. "Hey, I need a little help with something," she said, her voice hesitant. Alex wiped his hands on a dish towel and gave her his full attention. "Of course. What's up?" Emma's gaze flickered around the room, and for a moment, Alex thought he saw a hint of discomfort in her eyes. She cleared her throat. "I was thinking of taking a trip for the weekend, to visit family. Is it all right if I leave for a couple of days?" Alex, always the father figure, immediately nodded. "Yeah, no problem. Just let me know if you need anything before you go." "Thanks," she said with a soft smile, though there was something in her expression that made Alex feel as if he hadn't gotten the whole story. He brushed it off, figuring she was just being private. After all, everyone had their own life to deal with. Weeks passed, and the little mysteries about Emma only grew. She never mentioned much about her background or where her family was. Her father? A ghost. Her mother? The same. She never invited friends over. She spent most of her time studying or working at the small cafe downtown. When Alex asked about her studies, she'd always give short, polite answers, nothing revealing. But then one day, just after Thanksgiving, Alex received a call from a lawyer. The message was simple: "Mr. Collins, we'd like to discuss some details regarding your tenant, Emma Bradford." He was taken aback. Emma's last name rang a bell, but it wasn't until later that he realized why. Emma wasn't just a college student struggling to make ends meet. She wasn't some anonymous girl from a humble background. She was the daughter of a well-known real estate magnate, someone who had made billions in the property industry. The Bradford family was infamous for their wealth, their influence, their name on every corner of the city. Yet, Emma had been living under a completely different identity. Why? No one knew, except for her. The news hit Alex like a ton of bricks. Emma, this sweet, shy girl he had rented a room to, was not who she had claimed to be. She was the heir to a massive fortune. And here she was, sharing his modest home, working late shifts, and avoiding the luxury that should have been her birthright. The questions flooded in. Why had she never mentioned her family? Why had she come to live with him, a single dad barely scraping by? Was it guilt? Rebellion? Or something deeper? It wasn't until he ran into her one afternoon in the park, just outside his home, that he finally found the courage to ask. "Emma," he said, approaching her cautiously, "I need to understand. Why?" Emma looked up at him, her eyes shadowed by something he couldn't place. She hesitated for a long moment before speaking, her voice trembling slightly. "Because I don't want that life, Alex," she said, the words coming out in a rush. "I never wanted it. I grew up in a world where I was expected to be perfect, to be someone I wasn't. Everything I did was either for show or for some business deal. I hated it. I wanted to escape. I wanted to be normal." Alex swallowed hard. "So, you chose this? To live here? With me? To be normal?" Emma nodded, tears brimming in her eyes. Yes. I wanted to see if I could survive without the money, without the name. I wanted to feel what it's like to live, truly live, and not just exist in the shadow of wealth. Alex was quiet for a long time. The world had been so different for her. Her struggles, her desire for normalcy, were unlike anything he had imagined. In that moment, something shifted within him. He understood, more than he'd ever realized, how often people's struggles were hidden behind facades, how easy it was to assume someone's life was perfect just because it looked that way. The following months brought change, not just for Emma, but for Alex too. He learned to see her not as a rich girl living in his house, but as a young woman finding herself, fighting against an identity she hadn't chosen. Emma found strength in her new life, and Alex found inspiration in her courage. They both learned the value of resilience, of redefining success on their own terms. Emma didn't need her family's wealth to be happy. She discovered what it was like to stand on her own, to work hard for the things that mattered. She didn't need a mansion, a private jet, or fancy clothes. She needed peace. She needed honesty. And, most of all, she needed people who saw her for who she truly was, not for what her last name represented. As for Alex, he learned the importance of opening his heart to the unexpected, of letting someone into his life even when he didn't fully understand them. He realized that wealth wasn't measured in dollars and cents, but in love, in family, and in the bonds that were built, not by blood, but by choice. When Emma finally did reconnect with her family, it wasn't to claim her inheritance or fulfill some corporate role. It was simply to say, "I'm ready to live for me now." And as she left for the last time, Alex stood by his front door, watching her go, feeling an overwhelming sense of pride. She had found her way one step at a time. The final lesson came not in the form of a paycheck, but in the understanding that sometimes the greatest wealth in life comes from embracing the unknown, stepping into the world not as someone's heir, but as yourself. As Emma's car disappeared down the street, Alex turned back into his house. It had been a strange, unexpected journey. But, like Emma, he had also learned what it meant to truly live.